Hegseth said the threat China poses is real and could be imminent, adding that Beijing is determined to dominate and control the Indo-Pacific region. Let's listen in to what Hegseth had to say at the summit.
Through its massive military buildup and growing willingness to use military force to achieve its goals, including gray zone tactics and hybrid warfare, China has demonstrated that it wants to fundamentally alter the region. It has to be clear to all that Beijing is credibly preparing to potentially use military force to alter the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. Back in the Indo-Pacific, and we're here to stay. The United States is an Indo-Pacific nation. We have been since the earliest days of our republic. We will continue to be an Indo-Pacific nation with Indo-Pacific interests for generations to come.
Meanwhile, the European Union's diplomatic chief, Kaja Kallas, said that Europe is stepping up its defense spending after what she called tough love from the Trump administration. Speaking at the forum in Singapore, Kallas responded to U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's comments that President Donald Trump's insistence on increased military spending among NATO allies was a form of tough love. Kallas supported the push for greater investment in defense. Kallas also underscored that international law and rules-based global order remain the best deterrent for all nations. Let's listen in.
International law is the best deterrence for all countries, large and small. The rules-based global order is also the only guarantee for our safety and self-determination. When might replaces right, no border is safe.
Additionally, on the sidelines of the dialogue, India's Chief of Defense Staff said that India changed its tactics after suffering early air losses in its recent conflict with Pakistan. He revealed that India adjusted its approach after the first day of fighting and struck deep inside Pakistan with precision strikes. He called Pakistani claims of shooting down 6 Indian warplanes, including Rafales, absolutely incorrect. Chauhan confirmed India's forces penetrated Pakistani air defenses with impunity, targeting air bases across the country. He also stressed that India's government has made it clear it will respond precisely and decisively to any future terror attacks from Pakistan. Let's listen in.
India has made it quite clear. They have laid down the limits of the tolerance against terror activities emanating from Pakistan, and it's quite clear that India is going to respond precisely and decisively should there be any further terror attacks emanating from Pakistan.
We have guest Ruben F. Johnson as an international defense analyst joining us live from Singapore. Thank you, Ruben, for staying with us. U.S. Defense Chief has warned of Chinese aggression in Asia. Is the U.S. Defense Secretary right to say China is credibly preparing for military action in Asia?
Everything that the Chinese are doing, everything that they've done for years, everything about their approach to defense procurement, everything about their behavior in the Pacific, particularly in the South China Sea, everything about their propaganda, which they put out every day, everything talks all about the actions they're prepared to take: hostile, offensive, unprovoked, unwarranted military action against countries that have never done anything to them. But that's typical Chinese behavior.
And building on that point, how significant is the U.S. warning that China could invade Taiwan and reshape the Indo-Pacific power balance?
I've heard people say to me they believe that invasion could happen within 6 months. So it's not just an empty threat. It's not trying to scare people. It's not saber rattling. It's very, very real. China spends unbelievable sums of money preparing for that one single military operation, taking that small island. The amount of resources that they are pouring in to be able to do that, being prepared to do that, rehearsing to do that, when they send these aircraft flying around Taiwan to harass the island, and they send their ships sailing around the island, Admiral Paparo, who's here, Samuel Paparo, who's the Indo-Pacific commander for the United States military, based in Hawaii, he has said this flat out in the last month or so. He said, these are not training exercises. This is not the Chinese just trying to blow off steam or show their flag. These are rehearsals for an invasion. There's no question about it.
And as tensions, as you've also mentioned, that as tensions rise in the South China Sea, how close are we to a direct clash between China and the Philippines?
Probably even closer than we are to them trying to take Taiwan, because unlike Taiwan, the Philippines aren't very well armed and they're not a wealthy country. And they have far fewer military resources at their disposal. They're just now beginning to buy some more modern weapon systems.
And according to you, why is Washington asking Asian allies to match Europe's defense commitments? And is that a fair demand?
It's a fair demand, but it's not something that all the countries can match. If you're talking about Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, countries which are economically fairly well off, yes, it's a fair demand. If you're talking about the Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, and these countries have a little bit more difficult time with this. I mean, military equipment's very expensive. It's even more expensive to own and maintain than it is to buy. And the Chinese are always going to be able to outmatch most of these countries in terms of numbers. And remember, there is no Asian version of NATO, okay? There are no constant meetings between all of the heads of all of the Asian military establishments. There is no treaty that says if one country is attacked, all the other countries will respond. It makes it a lot easier for China to go after people one at a time like a bully and try and piecemeal carve up pieces of Asia and turn them into spheres of influence.
Now let's talk about India. India's defense chief now seems to admit losing jets in the recent clash with Pakistan. What more do we know about this 4-day conflict?
I have to tell you, I have been in the business of writing about and analyzing air power for more than 30 years. I've never found a situation where I could not get a straight answer from anyone about how many jets India lost, how many of what kind. You know, one of the claims is that India lost 3 Rafale aircraft. I'd be very surprised if that was true, because I know this aircraft, I know the people who build it, I know the Dassault company very well. That aircraft has one of the best electronic warfare systems that there is. If they were shot down, something somewhere went very, very wrong. And I don't know what it is, because first of all, I can't get a straight answer from anyone. Secondly, I don't have access to all of the electronic intercepts that have been taken undoubtedly by the different intelligence agencies around the world, who could probably tell you exactly what went wrong.
Thank you. And moving back to Singapore's Shangri-La talks, the EU's Kaja Kallas says Trump's tough love has boosted Europe's defense. Is this a shift from, or is this a shift in tone from Brussels?
Well, it's not so much a shift in tone from Brussels, because remember, Brussels is the headquarters for NATO. Now, you've had NATO countries like Poland who've been rearming for years now, because they know what the Russians are about. They know what the Russians are like. But you have other countries like Germany, which have been in denial. And I've had plenty of conversations in the last decade or more with different Germans in their defense apparatus, in their defense community. And I would say, well, the Poles are buying all this military hardware, they're getting ready to go to war, they look at what the Russians are doing, and the Germans would always say, oh, those Poles, they're always exaggerating, you can't believe. So then guess what? Russia turns around and does exactly what Poland said. They invade Ukraine. And the current Polish foreign minister, Radek Sikorski, one of the first things he said to the Germans after the Ukraine invasion was, "Oh, I guess you're not going to say we're exaggerating anymore." So a lot of these Western European countries have been in denial. And they don't want to have bad relations with Russia because there's too much money to be made.
Thank you very much, Ruben, for joining us and sharing a lot of insight.